Jake was the kind of guy who noticed things, little things that most people missed. The way someone walked, how they held their pencil, or if they seemed nervous about something. It was just how his brain worked. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened that Tuesday morning in his college biology class. The October air was crisp, and Jake had grabbed his usual seat in the third row. He liked sitting there because he could see the board clearly, but wasn't so close that the professor would call on him randomly. Students were chatting about their weekend plans when Professor Williams walked in with someone new. She was different. That was Jake's first thought. Not different in a bad way, just unusual. Her skin seemed to catch the light in a way that made it look almost like it was glowing softly. Her hair was a deep black color that seemed to shift between purple and blue when she moved her head. In her eyes, they were this amazing violet color that Jake had never seen before. Everyone. "We have a new student joining us today, Professor," Williams announced. "This is Luna. She's an exchange student from overseas and will be with us for the rest of the semester." Luna smiled politely and gave a small wave to the class. But then something strange happened. As she looked around the room, her eyes stopped when they found Jake, and when that happened, her whole body seemed to freeze. She took a sharp breath in, like someone had surprised her. Her eyes went wide, and she grabbed onto the desk next to her so tightly that her knuckles turned white. "Are you okay?" Professor Williams asked, looking concerned. Luna nodded quickly, but never took her eyes off Jake. "Yes, I'm fine. Just adjusting to being here." The professor pointed to an empty seat a few rows behind Jake. "Why don't you take that seat there? And we'll get started with today's lesson." But as Luna walked to her seat, Jake could feel her watching him. It was like having a spotlight on his back. He tried to focus on what the professor was saying about cell structures, but he kept wanting to turn around and see if she was still staring. During the break between classes, Jake was packing up his books when he heard a voice behind him. "Excuse me?" He turned around to find Luna standing right there, up close. He could see that her skin really did have this subtle shimmer to it, like she was wearing some kind of special makeup. Her accent was strange too, not quite British, not quite European, but something he couldn't place. "Hi," Jake said, feeling a bit awkward. "You're Luna, right? Welcome to the school." She smiled, but there was something intense about the way she looked at him. "Thank you. I hope you don't think this is weird, but I have to ask you something." Jake waited, curious about what she wanted to know. "Your scent," she said. And Jake felt his cheeks get hot with embarrassment. Great, he thought. The new girl thinks I smell bad. But before he could apologize, she continued. "It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. It's incredible." Jake blinked in surprise. That wasn't what he'd expected her to say. Thanks, I think. I mean, I just use regular soap and deodorant." "So?" Luna shook her head quickly. "No, not artificial fragrances. Those actually make it harder for me to detect. I'm talking about your natural scent, your body's own chemistry. It's absolutely fascinating." This conversation was getting stranger by the minute. Jake had never had someone comment on his natural smell before, and he wasn't sure how to respond. "That's nice of you to say, I guess." "You probably think I'm crazy," Luna said with a small laugh. "People here don't usually talk about these things, do they? But where I'm from, scent is very important. We pay attention to these details." "Where exactly are you from?" Jake asked, genuinely curious now. Luna paused for just a moment long before answering. "Northern Europe, a very small community. We have different customs there." Over the next few days, Jake found himself thinking about Luna more than he probably should have. She had this way of showing up in his other classes, even though he was pretty sure she wasn't enrolled in all of them. When he asked her about it, she would just smile and say she liked to observe different teaching styles in their biology class. Luna was incredible. She knew things that seemed way beyond what a college student should know. When they were studying the nervous system, she corrected their textbook about how certain neural pathways worked. When Professor Williams looked it up later, it turned out Luna was right. The textbook information was outdated. "How did you know that?" Jake asked her after class one day. I've always been interested in biology, Luna replied. Especially human biology. The way your bodies work is so complex and beautiful. The way she said your body struck Jake as odd, but he figured English wasn't her first language. So maybe that explained it. What really got Jake's attention was how Luna behaved around him specifically. She would sit as close to him as possible. In class, sometimes so close he could feel the warmth from her skin. When he asked her about it, she said his biochemical signature helped her concentrate better. Jake had never heard anyone use words like that in casual conversation. She also had this habit of showing up places where she couldn't possibly have known he would be, like when he decided to study late at the library on Thursday night, something he'd never done before. She was there within 20 minutes. Or when he went to a coffee shop across town that he'd never been to, and she walked in 10 minutes after him. How did you know I was here? He asked that time. Luna looked genuinely confused by his question. I could sense you were here. Can't you tell when someone you know is nearby? Not unless I see them or they call me, Jake said. Oh, Luna said, looking surprised. That's different than what I'm used to. The strangest part was how other people reacted to Luna. Some students seemed almost afraid of her, though they couldn't explain why. When Jake asked, others acted like they couldn't quite see her properly, like she was slightly out of focus. But Jake saw her perfectly clearly, maybe even more clearly than he saw most people. One evening, Jake was walking across campus when he spotted Luna sitting alone on a bench, looking up at the stars. She looked sad, which was unusual for her. He walked over and sat down next to her. Everything okay? He asked. Luna was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, do you ever feel like you don't belong somewhere? Like you're trying to fit in, but something about you is just wrong for this place? Jake thought about it. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, everyone feels out of place occasionally, right? But what if it's more than that? Luna asked, still looking at the stars. What if you're so different that being around other people could be dangerous for them? Or for you? That sounds pretty serious, Jake said. Do you want to talk about what's really bothering you? Luna finally looked at him, and in the moonlight, her violet eyes seemed to glow slightly. There are things about me that you wouldn't understand. Things that could complicate your life in ways you can't imagine. Try me, Jake said. I'm pretty good at understanding complicated things. Luna was quiet again for a long time. Then she stood up suddenly. I should go. But Jake, if strange things start happening around you, if you notice people watching you who don't seem quite right, promise me you'll be careful. Before Jake could ask what she meant, Luna had walked away, moving with that unusual grace that made her seem like she was floating rather than walking. As Jake watched her disappear into the darkness, he realized that whatever Luna's story was, he was probably already more involved in it than he understood, and something told him that his quiet, ordinary college life was about to become much more complicated. The weeks that followed that strange conversation under the stars brought even more puzzling behavior from Luna. Jake found himself looking forward to their biology class, not just because of the subject matter, but because he was genuinely curious about what Luna would do or say next. She had started sitting even closer to him now, sometimes so close that other students would give them odd looks. When Jake mentioned this to her, Luna seemed genuinely surprised that people found it unusual. Your natural chemistry helps me focus, she explained matter-of-factly. The closer I sit, the clearer my thoughts become. Doesn't everyone work better around certain people? Jake had to admit that he did feel more alert and focused when Luna was around, but he never thought of it in terms of chemistry before. I guess some people do have that effect, he said. Exactly, Luna nodded, as if this explained everything perfectly. But it wasn't just her seating preferences that were getting attention. Luna's knowledge in their biology class was becoming impossible to ignore. Last Tuesday, when Professor Williams was explaining how certain brain chemicals worked, Luna had quietly raised her hand. Excuse me, Professor, she said politely. I think there might be an error in the textbook. Professor Williams looked surprised. Oh, what kind of error? Luna pointed to a diagram on the page. The way it shows these neural pathways connecting. That's not actually how they work in real brains. The connections are more complex. And there's a secondary pathway that isn't shown here. The professor frowned and looked at the textbook more carefully. Are you sure about that, Luna? This is a pretty standard diagram that's been used for years. I'm certain, Luna said with quiet confidence. If you check the latest research from the Institute of Neurological Studies, you'll find they published new findings about this just 6 months ago. Professor Williams made a note to look it up later. The next class, he announced that Luna had been absolutely right. The textbook was outdated, and the new research showed exactly what she had described. How did you know about research that recent? Jake asked Luna after class. I mean, that's pretty advanced stuff for an undergraduate student. Luna paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. I've always been ahead of my age group when it comes to biological sciences. Where I grew up, we had access to very current research. This wasn't the only time something like this happened. Luna seemed to know things about human biology that even their professor found impressive. She could explain complex processes in ways that made them sound simple. And she often knew about studies and discoveries that were so new they hadn't even made it into academic journals yet. You should consider switching to a pre-med track, Professor Williams suggested to Luna one day. You clearly have an exceptional understanding of biological systems. Luna smiled politely but shook her head. I'm more interested in observational studies, understanding how different biological systems interact with each other. The way she said it made Jake feel like there was a deeper meaning he wasn't catching. Outside of class, Luna's behavior was becoming even more unusual. She had this uncanny ability to find Jake wherever he went, even when he changed his routines completely. Last Thursday, he had decided to skip his usual coffee shop and try a new place on the other side of town. He'd never been there before, had never even mentioned it to anyone, yet within half an hour of arriving, Luna walked through the door. Hey, she said casually, sliding into the seat across from him. How's the coffee here, Luna? Jake said, setting down his cup. How did you know I was here? I didn't tell anyone where I was going. She looked genuinely puzzled by his question. I could sense your presence in this direction. It's not that difficult. What do you mean? Sense my presence? Jake asked. People can't just sense where other people are. Luna tilted her head, studying his face with interest. They can't. That's unusual. How do you find people when you're looking for them? I call them, or text them, or go to places where I know they might be, Jake explained. Feeling like he was stating the obvious, oh, Luna said, looking genuinely surprised. That seems complicated. These conversations were starting to worry Jake. Luna seemed to think that abilities most people didn't have were perfectly normal, while things that were normal for everyone else surprised her. The situation got even stranger when Jake started noticing that Luna seemed to know things about him that he'd never told her. She knew he preferred his coffee black, even though he'd never ordered coffee in front of her. She knew he was left-handed before she'd ever seen him write anything. She even knew he had a small scar on his shoulder from a childhood accident, though he was certain it wasn't visible under his clothes. How do you know all this stuff about me? He asked her one day as they were walking across campus. I pay attention, Luna said simply. Your body tells me things. The way you move, your breathing patterns, subtle changes in your scent when you're thinking about different topics. My scent changes when I think about different things, Jake asked. Incredulous, of course, Luna said, as if this was common knowledge. Everyone's does. Your biochemistry shifts slightly based on your emotional and mental state. Can't you smell it? Jake stopped walking and stared at her. Luna, normal people cannot smell emotional states. That's not how humans work. Luna stopped too, and for the first time since he'd known her, she looked genuinely concerned. What do you mean? That's not how humans work. The way she phrased the question sent a chill down Jake's spine. I mean, people don't have that kind of sense of smell. We can't detect emotions or thoughts through scent. That's not a human ability. Luna was quiet for a long moment, staring at him with those unusual violet eyes. where I come from. She said slowly, these abilities are considered normal. Where exactly is that? Jake asked. And don't say Northern Europe again. I've looked up every country in Northern Europe, and none of them have populations with enhanced senses of smell. Luna looked uncomfortable for the first time since he'd known her. It's a very isolated community. We've developed certain traits over generations that might seem unusual to outsiders. But Jake wasn't buying it anymore. Too many things didn't add up. Luna's knowledge was too advanced, her abilities too unusual, and her explanations too vague. That evening, Jake decided to do some investigating on his own. He went to the library and started researching everything he could find about enhanced human senses, genetic mutations that might cause unusual abilities, and isolated communities with unique traits. What he found wasn't much, but it was enough to make him even more curious. There were some scientific papers about people with hyperosmia, an enhanced sense of smell, but even those cases didn't describe abilities like what Luna seemed to have done as he was packing up his books to leave. He heard familiar footsteps behind him. Find anything interesting? Luna's voice asked. Jake turned around to find her standing there with a small, sad smile on her face. How did you know I was here? He asked. And how did you know what I was researching? Luna sighed and sat down across from him. Jake, there are things about me that I haven't been completely honest about. Things that would be very difficult for you to understand or accept. Try me, Jake said, echoing what he'd told her weeks ago under the stars. Luna looked around the nearly empty library, then back at him. Not here. If you really want to know the truth, meet me in the biology lab tomorrow night after 10. Make sure no one follows you. She stood up to leave, then paused. Jake, once you know the truth about what I am, everything will change. Your life will become more complicated and possibly more dangerous. Are you sure you want that? Jake looked into those strange, beautiful violet eyes and realized that he'd already made his choice weeks ago. Probably the first moment he'd seen her. Yes, I want to know. Luna nodded slowly. Then I'll tell you everything tomorrow night. But Jake, after tomorrow, there might not be any going back to your normal life. As she walked away, moving with that otherworldly grace that had caught his attention from the very beginning, Jake realized that his normal life had probably ended the moment Luna had walked into his biology class. Now he was just finally going to find out what had replaced it. Jake spent the entire next day feeling nervous and distracted. He kept checking the clock, watching the hours slowly tick by until it would be time to meet Luna in the biology lab. His friends noticed he was acting strange during lunch. Dude, you're barely eating, his roommate Tyler said, and you keep staring off into space. What's going on? Nothing, Jake said quickly, just thinking about some stuff. But it wasn't nothing. Jake had barely slept the night before, his mind racing, with possibilities about what Luna might tell him. Part of him wondered if she was just an eccentric person with some unusual talents. But a growing part of him suspected the truth was going to be much stranger than that. By 10:15 that night, Jake was standing outside the biology lab, his heart pounding. The hallways were empty and dimly lit, giving the whole building an eerie feeling. He tried the door handle and found it unlocked. Inside, the lab was dark except for a single lamp at one of the workstations. Luna was sitting there, but she wasn't alone. On the table in front of her was an open laptop displaying complex molecular diagrams that Jake didn't recognize. Next to the laptop were several small vials containing different colored liquids, and what looked like a strand of hair under a microscope. You came, Luna said softly, looking up as he approached. Is that my hair? Jake asked, recognizing the dark brown color. Luna nodded, looking slightly embarrassed. I found it on your jacket a few days ago. I hope you don't mind that. I kept it. What are you doing with it? Jake asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Testing it, Luna replied, trying to understand what makes your genetic structure so unique. Jake pulled up a chair across from her, his stomach churning with anxiety. Luna, what's going on? What haven't you been telling me? Luna stared at the laptop screen for a long moment, then closed it and looked directly at him. Jake, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible. You're probably going to think I'm crazy or lying, or both. I already think something's not normal about this situation, Jake said. So just tell me the truth. Luna took a deep breath. I'm not from Northern Europe. I'm not from anywhere on Earth. Jake blinked, certain he misheard. What do you mean? Not from Earth. I mean I'm from another world, Luna said quietly. Another planet. In a solar system very far from here. My people have been studying your planet for a long time, sending scouts to observe and learn about human behavior and biology. Jake stared at her, waiting for her to smile or laugh or say she was kidding. But Luna's expression remained completely serious. You're telling me you're an alien. Jake said slowly, That's your word for it. Yes, Luna nodded. Though we prefer to think of ourselves as researchers, we've been watching Earth for generations, trying to understand how different species develop and interact. Jake stood up abruptly, running his hands through his hair. This is crazy. People don't just. Aliens aren't real. They don't go to college and take biology classes. We are real, Luna said calmly, and attending your educational institutions is one of the best ways to study human social structures and learning processes. I've been here for 3 months, gathering information about human development and behavior. Prove it, Jake said, turning back to face her. If you're really from another planet, prove it. Luna hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a small device that Jake had never seen before. It was smooth and metallic, about the size of a smartphone, but with no visible buttons or screen. Luna held it in her palm, and it immediately began glowing with a soft blue light. This is a biosensor, she explained. It can analyze the genetic structure and health status of any living organism. She pointed it toward Jake, and the device's light changed to a warm golden color. Right now it's telling me your heart rate is elevated, your stress hormones are high, and your unique genetic markers are creating the same biochemical reaction in me. That's been happening since the day we met. Jake stared at the device, which continued to glow and pulse with different colors. That could just be some kind of advanced technology from Earth. Could it? Luna asked. She stood up and walked over to a plant on the windowsill. When she pointed the device at it, the light turned green and began displaying what looked like complex data and symbols Jake didn't recognize. It's telling me this plant is slightly dehydrated and needs more nitrogen in its soil. Should I test it on other things? Jake watched as Luna demonstrated the device on several other objects around the lab. Each time, the device seemed to provide detailed information about whatever she pointed it at. When she aimed it at some preserved specimens in jars, it displayed different colors and patterns for each one. This technology doesn't exist on Earth, Luna said, putting the device away. At least, not yet. Your species is still decades away from developing biosensors this advanced. Jake sat back down, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Okay, let's say you're telling the truth. Let's say you really are from another planet. Why are you telling me this? Luna's expression became troubled. Because something's gone wrong with my mission. Something that's never happened before to any of our scouts. What kind of something? Luna picked up one of the vials from the table. The liquid inside was a deep purple color. This is a sample of my blood, she said. And this, she picked up another vial containing clear liquid, is a normal sample from when I first arrived on Earth. Jake could see that the two samples were completely different colors. When we're sent to study other species, we undergo biological modifications, Luna continued. Changes to our appearance, our sensory systems, our neural pathways. These modifications help us blend in and understand the species we're studying. So you don't naturally look human, Jake said. No, my real appearance is quite different, but the modifications are designed to be temporary and reversible. When our mission is complete, we return to our natural form. Luna held up the purple vial again. But something in your biochemistry is interfering with my modifications. Instead of being temporary, they're becoming permanent, and worse. They're creating changes that weren't part of the original design. What kind of changes? Luna said. Down the vial and looked directly at him. Emotional attachments, protective instincts, concern for individual welfare rather than just data collection. She paused. My people don't experience these things the way humans do, but being around you has triggered responses in my modified nervous system that are making me more human than I was supposed to become. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Is that dangerous for you? Very, Luna said quietly. My supervisors are starting to notice that my reports have become unfocused. Instead of sending detailed observations about human social structures and biological systems, I've been writing mostly about one specific human. About you. They know about me, Luna nodded. They know something is interfering with my mission. They don't yet understand what, but they're investigating. And Jake, when they figure out that your specific genetic structure is causing these changes in me, they're going to want to study you too. Jake felt his mouth go dry. Study me how? The same way they study any biological anomaly. Luna said, and her voice was heavy with worry. Thoroughly, completely, in ways that wouldn't be pleasant for you. Jake stood up again, pacing around the small lab. So what are you saying? That I'm in danger because some aliens want to experiment on me? You're in danger because my people see your effect on me as either a flaw in their technology or a potential threat to our security. Luna corrected. Either way, they'll want to understand it, and they'll want to make sure it doesn't interfere with future missions. What does that mean? Exactly. Luna was quiet for a long moment. It means they might decide that the safest solution is to remove the source of the interference entirely. The meaning of her words hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. They want to kill me. They want to eliminate a potential threat to their operations, Luna said carefully. Whether that means studying you, relocating you, or... She couldn't finish the sentence. Jake slumped back into his chair, overwhelmed by everything he'd just learned. So let me get this straight. You're an alien who was sent here to study humans. But something about my biology is making your alien technology malfunction and turning you more human. And now your alien bosses want to experiment on me or kill me to fix the problem? That's a very simplified way to put it. But essentially yes, Luna said. And how long do we have before they show up? Luna checked something on her laptop. Based on my last communication with them, I'd estimate we have maybe a week before they send someone to investigate directly. Jake looked at her, this beautiful, strange girl who had just turned his entire understanding of reality upside down. Luna, what are we going to do? For the first time since he'd known her, Luna looked genuinely scared. I honestly don't know. I've never been in a situation like this before. None of our scouts have. You're the first human who's ever caused this kind of reaction. There has to be something we can do, Jake said. Some way to fix this or hide from them or... There might be, Luna said slowly, but it would require me to do something that would change everything for both of us, something that could never be undone. Jake leaned forward. What? Luna met his eyes, and in that moment, he could see the... Jake's blood ran cold as he watched Luna stare at her laptop screen. The urgent beeping had stopped, but the look on her face told him everything he needed to know. Whatever message she'd just received, it wasn't good news. What does it say? Jake asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. Luna's fingers moved quickly across the laptop's surface, which Jake now realized wasn't a normal keyboard, but something that responded to touch in ways he didn't understand. They're sending Agent Zix. He'll be here within 6 hours. Agent Zix, Jake repeated. That doesn't sound like a very friendly name. He's not friendly, Luna said grimly. Closing the laptop, Zix specializes in fixing problems that other agents can't handle. If they're sending him, it means they consider this situation a serious threat. Jake felt panic rising in his chest. Luna, we need to get out of here, right now. Where will we go? Luna asked. Jake, these people can track biological signatures across continents. They have technology that can locate specific individuals anywhere on your planet. Running won't help. Then what do we do? Just sit here and wait for the Zix guy to show up and experiment on me? Luna stood up and began pacing around the lab, her movements quick and agitated. There might be a way to hide you temporarily, but it would be risky and I'm not sure how long it would work. Tell me, Jake said. I have a device that can temporarily mask biological signatures, Luna explained. It would make you invisible to their scanners for maybe 12 hours. But Jake, if they detect that someone is actively hiding you, it will only make them more suspicious. 12 hours is better than nothing, Jake said. At least it gives us time to figure out a better plan. Luna stopped pacing and looked at him seriously. There's something else you need to know. Since I sent my last report 3 days ago, I've been monitoring their communications. They're not just concerned about me anymore. What do you mean? They've detected other anomalies, small things, but consistent. Changes in local wildlife behavior near the campus. Unusual electromagnetic readings from this area. Even some of your weather patterns have been slightly different since I arrived. Jake stared at her in disbelief. Are you saying that just being around me is affecting the environment? It's possible. Luna admitted. The same biochemical signature that's affecting my modifications might be influencing other biological systems too. My people are starting to think you might not be entirely human. That's ridiculous, Jake said, but even as he said it, he thought about all the strange things that had been happening since Luna arrived. Animals on campus did seem to act differently around him. Lately, his roommate had mentioned that their houseplants were growing unusually fast. Even his professors had commented that he seemed more focused and alert than before. Jake, Luna said gently, when was the last time you got sick, even a minor cold? Jake thought about it. I don't remember. Maybe 2 years ago. Do you? Heal faster than other people when you get injured. I guess so. I mean, I've always been pretty healthy. Have you ever noticed that people feel calmer or more energetic when they spend time around you? Jake was starting to feel uncomfortable with these questions. Luna, what are you getting at? I think there's something special about your genetic structure that my people don't understand yet. Something that makes you more than just a normal human. And if I'm right, that makes you incredibly valuable to them. Before Jake could respond, Luna's biosensor device suddenly began glowing red and emitting a low humming sound. What's that mean? Jake asked. Luna's face went pale. It means they're already here. But you said 6 hours. I was wrong, Luna said, quickly gathering her equipment. They must have used a faster transport method. Jake, we need to leave this building immediately. They hurried toward the lab door, but Luna suddenly grabbed Jake's arm and pulled him back. Wait, she whispered. Listen. Jake strained his ears and heard what she was talking about. Footsteps in the hallway outside, but they didn't sound like normal footsteps. They were too precise, too evenly spaced, like someone walking to the beat of a metronome. Is that them? Jake whispered. Luna nodded, her grip tightening on his arm. That's how we walk when we're in mission mode. Natural human movement is too unpredictable for efficient navigation. The footsteps stopped right outside the lab door. Luna quickly pulled out her biological masking device and pressed it into Jake's hand. Put this in your pocket and don't let go of it. It's already activated. What? About you? Jake whispered. I'll be fine. They're here for information, not to harm me. But Jake, if they realize you're here, the door handle began to turn slowly. Back exit. Luna mouthed silently, pointing toward a door at the rear of the lab that Jake hadn't noticed before. They moved as quietly as possible toward the back of the room. But just as they reached the rear door, the main lab door opened and someone walked in. Jake got his first look at one of Luna's people and immediately understood why she'd been so worried. The person looked human at first glance, but something was definitely off. Their movements were too fluid, too controlled. Their skin had the same subtle shimmer that Luna's did, but more pronounced, and their eyes were completely black, with no visible pupils or iris. Agent Luna, the figure said, and their voice sounded like it was coming from everywhere at once rather than from their mouth. You have missed your scheduled report, Agent Zix, Luna replied, stepping away from Jake toward the center of the room. I was experiencing some technical difficulties with my communication equipment. Our scans indicate that you have been experiencing biological irregularities, Zix said, moving further into the room. This requires immediate investigation. Jake pressed himself against the wall near the back door. hoping the masking device Luna had given him was working. Zix's head turned slightly in his direction, and Jake's heart nearly stopped, but the agent's attention returned to Luna. "I am functioning within normal parameters," Luna said. Though Jake could hear the tension in her voice, "Your recent reports suggest otherwise." Zix replied, "You have been focusing extensively on a single human subject rather than conducting broad population studies. This indicates possible cognitive contamination." "I was conducting an in-depth case study," Luna said. "Sometimes detailed analysis of one individual can provide more useful data than surface observations of many." Zix moved closer to Luna, and Jake could see that they were examining her with the same kind of intense focus that Luna had used when studying him. "Your biochemistry has been altered," Zix observed. "These changes are not part of your original modifications. What has caused this deviation?" "I don't know," Luna said, and Jake could tell she was trying to sound confused rather than defensive. "I assumed it was a normal adaptation to extended exposure to human environments." "These changes are not normal," Zix stated flatly. "They represent a significant malfunction in your biological systems. You will return with me for immediate reconditioning." "Reconditioning?" Luna asked, and Jake heard real fear in her voice. For the first time, "Your current psychological and biological state represents a compromise to mission security," Zix explained. "The alterations will be reversed, and your original programming will be restored." Jake realized that this reconditioning process was what Luna had been afraid of, something that would erase everything she'd become since arriving on Earth. It would essentially kill the Luna he knew and replace her with whoever she'd been before. Luna must have realized the same thing, because she took a step backward. "I don't think that's necessary. I can complete my mission objectives in my current state." "Negative," Zix said, moving even closer. "Your current state represents an unacceptable risk to our operations. You will comply with reconditioning protocols." Immediately, that's when Luna did something that surprised everyone in the room, including Jake. She pulled out her biosensor device and pointed it directly at Zix. "Actually," she said, her voice steady despite the fear Jake knew she was feeling, "I don't think I will." The device began glowing brightly, and Zix immediately stepped back with what looked like alarm. "Agent Luna, you are in violation of direct orders," Zix said, and for the first time, their voice sounded less than perfectly controlled. "I'm resigning from the mission," Luna announced, effective immediately. Jake realized this was his chance. While Zix was focused entirely on Luna, he quietly opened the back door and slipped out into the hallway beyond. The last thing he heard before the door closed was Zix saying something in a language that didn't sound like anything he'd ever heard before. But as Jake ran down the empty corridor, he realized that getting away was only half the problem. Somewhere behind him, Luna was facing the consequences of choosing to protect him over following her people's orders, and he had no idea if he'd ever see her again. Jake ran through the empty hallways of the science building, his heart pounding and his mind racing. The biological masking device Luna had given him felt warm in his pocket, and he hoped it was actually working. Behind him, he could hear strange sounds coming from the biology lab. Not quite voices, not quite machinery, but something that made his skin crawl. He made it outside and kept running until he reached the main quad, where he finally stopped to catch his breath. The campus was mostly empty at this hour, with just a few students walking between the dorms and the library. Everything looked normal, peaceful even, which felt surreal after what he'd just experienced. Jake pulled out his phone to call for help, then realized he had no idea who to call or what to say. Who would believe that his biology lab was currently occupied by aliens? And even if someone did believe him, what could they do about it? He was still trying to figure out his next move when he saw Luna walking across the quad toward him. She looked calm, which surprised him given what had just happened. "Luna," he called out, jogging over to meet her. "Are you okay? What happened with Zix?" "Everything's fine," Luna said with a smile. It was just a routine check-in. Nothing to worry about, but something felt wrong. Luna's voice sounded right, and she looked exactly the same. But there was something different about the way she was standing, the way she was looking at him. It was like she was performing the role of Luna rather than actually being her. "What? Did you tell him?" Jake asked carefully. I explained that my research was proceeding normally and that I was gathering valuable data. "About human social structures," Luna replied. He was satisfied with my progress report. Jake studied her face. "Luna, yesterday you told me that your people don't experience emotions the way humans do. You said that being around me was making you more human than you were supposed to be." "I think you misunderstood what I was saying," Luna said, tilting her head slightly. "My people are quite capable of emotional responses. We simply process them differently than humans do." That confirmed Jake's suspicions. This wasn't the Luna he knew. Somehow, Zix had already done something to her, the reconditioning she'd been so afraid of. "Right," Jake said, trying to keep his voice normal. "I guess I was confused. It's understandable." Luna said, "Human cognitive processing can be quite limited compared to other species." The real Luna would never have said something like that. She'd always been careful to speak about humans respectfully, as if she considered herself one of them rather than something superior. "Well, I should probably get back to my dorm," Jake said. "I have an early class tomorrow." "Actually," Luna said, "I was hoping you might come with me. There are some people I'd like you to meet." "What people?" "Colleagues of mine. They're very interested in your unique biological character." "Istics." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "My biological characteristics. Your genetic structure is quite fascinating," Luna continued, still wearing that same pleasant smile. "We'd like to study it more closely." This was definitely not Luna. The real Luna had been worried about protecting him from exactly this kind of attention. She would never voluntarily hand him over to her people for study. "You know what? I'm actually pretty tired," Jake said, backing away slowly. "Maybe we can do this another time." "I'm afraid that won't be possible," Luna said, and her smile became somehow more fixed and less natural. "The opportunity for study is available now. It would be inefficient to postpone it." Jake turned and started walking quickly toward the student parking lot, hoping to get to his car before whoever this was could stop him. But as he walked, he became aware that other people on campus were watching him. A janitor near the library, a security guard by the administration building, even a couple of students who were supposedly studying on benches. They were all tracking his movement with the same unnatural precision. He broke into a run. But before he could reach his car, several figures stepped out from behind parked vehicles, blocking his path. They all had the same otherworldly appearance as Zix, human-looking, but wrong in subtle ways. That made Jake's instinct scream danger. "Jake Chen," one of them said, and hearing his full name in that strange, emotionless voice made his blood run cold. "You will come with us for biological evaluation." "I don't think so," Jake said, looking around desperately for an escape route. "This is not a request," another figure said. "Your genetic anomalies represent a significant research opportunity. Cooperation will make the process more efficient for all parties." That's when Jake heard a familiar voice behind him. "Actually, I think you'll find that Jake is under my protection." He turned around to see Luna walking toward them. But this Luna was different from the one he'd just been talking to. This Luna moved with the urgent, emotional energy he remembered, and her eyes had that worried, caring expression he'd come to know so well. "Agent Luna," one of the figures said, "you have been successfully reconditioned. Why are you interfering with this operation?" "Because the reconditioning didn't work," Luna said, pulling out a device Jake had never seen before. It looked like her biosensor, but larger and more complex. Turns out that when you spend enough time around someone whose biochemistry fundamentally alters your neural pathways, those changes become permanent. "Impossible," the figure said. "Reconditioning protocols are 100% effective, normally." "Yes," Luna agreed, "but you've never dealt with someone like Jake before. His genetic structure doesn't just affect alien biology temporarily, it creates lasting changes. That can't be reversed." Jake was trying to follow the conversation, but he was more focused on the fact that there seemed to be to Luna's present. "Luna," he said, "how are there two of you? The one you talked to earlier was a duplicate, Luna explained, not taking her eyes off the other figures. They created a copy of me with my original personality restored, hoping to use her to capture you. But I managed to escape during the reconditioning process. How? Remember when I told you that your biochemistry was changing me in ways my people didn't understand? Well, it turns out those changes go deeper than anyone realized. Deep enough that I'm no longer entirely compatible with their technology. One of the figures stepped forward. Agent Luna, you are malfunctioning. Report for immediate replacement. I'm not malfunctioning, Luna said firmly. I'm evolving, and I'm not going to let you harm Jake. She activated the device in her hands, and suddenly the air around them began to shimmer. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation, like static electricity, but warmer. What are you doing? He asked. Creating a disruption field, Luna explained. It will interfere with their ability to track us or use their technology, but it won't last long. The other figures immediately began moving toward them, but their movements seemed slower and less coordinated than before. We need to go, Luna said, grabbing Jake's hand now. They ran together toward the edge of campus, but Jake could see that the disruption field was creating obvious visual effects. The air was shimmering like heat waves, and the streetlights were flickering. Other students were starting to notice. And point, Luna, Jake said as they ran. This is going to attract attention from more than just your people. Regular humans are going to start asking questions. I know, Luna replied. That's actually part of the plan. What plan, Jake? There's something I didn't tell you earlier. My people's biggest weakness is exposure. They can only operate on Earth as long as humans don't know they exist. If their presence becomes public knowledge, they'll have to withdraw completely. Jake understood what she was suggesting. You want to reveal them to everyone. It's the only way to protect you long-term, Luna said. And Jake, I've made a decision. I don't want to go back to my people. I want to stay here, with you, as a human. Is that possible? I can use my own technology to complete the biological conversion process, Luna explained. It will sever my connection to my people permanently and make me fully human. But Jake, once I do this, there's no going back. I'll lose all my enhanced abilities, all my memories of my home world. I'll essentially become a completely different person. They had reached the main entrance to campus, where several security guards were, already gathering to investigate the strange lights and sounds. In the distance, Jake could see news vans starting to arrive. Luna, Jake said, stopping to look at her seriously, you can't give up everything for me. Your home, your people, your identity. That's the biggest sacrifice. Luna smiled, and for the first time since he'd known her, it was a completely human smile. Jake, you still don't understand. I'm not giving up who I am. I'm becoming who I was always meant to be. She pulled out another device, this one small and silver. My people modify me to study humanity. But what they didn't expect was that studying you would teach me what it means to care about someone more than yourself. They didn't expect that I would choose love over duty. Love, Jake repeated, his heart stopping. I love you, Luna said simply, and I'd rather be human and love you than be alien and lose you. She activated the device, and Jake watched as a gentle light surrounded her. When it faded, Luna looked exactly the same. But somehow he could tell that everything had changed. How do you feel? He asked. Luna reached up and touched his face with a completely human touch. I feel like I'm finally home. In the distance, they could hear sirens.